Across the world, more than 50% of the global population will head to the polls in 2024, marking one of the most consequential years for global democracy in recent history. From established democracies in the US and Europe to authoritarian regimes in Russia and Belarus, these elections will shape not only domestic politics, but also the future of international relations, global cooperation, and the fight to protect democratic values. This year, elections are taking place in more than 70 countries, representing over 4 billion people. These elections are not just routine democratic exercises, they are a litmus test for the health of democracy globally, at a time when misinformation, polarization, and authoritarianism are on the rise. In 2024, the world will witness an unprecedented wave of elections, with more than half the global population heading to the polls. These elections, taking place in both established democracies and authoritarian regimes, will determine the future of our global political landscape. In countries like Russia and Belarus, elections have become a tool for authoritarian leaders to consolidate their power. Vladimir Putin, who is expected to easily secure a fifth term as president, continues to leverage Russia's political system to maintain control. These elections are more symbolic than democratic, reaffirming the regime's hold on power and undermining the principles of free and fair elections. While countries like Russia and Belarus hold elections, the results are often predetermined. Leaders use these elections to tighten their grip on power, while opposition voices are silenced. However, the stakes are also high in countries where democracy has traditionally been strong. The US, India, and the European Union are all grappling with rising populism and political fragmentation, which are eroding trust in democratic institutions.
Repressions in our country are intensified. On average, about 17 people are being detained every day. Lawyers, journalists, activists, people are given years and years in prisons for challenging the regime and they opposing the war in Ukraine.
Democracies around the world are under strain. In countries like the US and India, polarization and populism are deepening divides and shaking public trust in electoral systems. A major challenge in these elections is the rise of misinformation, amplified by advances in technology. AI-generated content and targeted disinformation campaigns are being used to manipulate voters, further polarizing societies and undermining the integrity of elections. In the US and other democracies, distrust in the electoral process is growing, fueled by conspiracy theories and disinformation spread across social media. Technology is playing an increasingly dangerous role in elections. From AI-generated disinformation to deepfakes, the integrity of elections is under threat, with voters struggling to distinguish fact from fiction. In response, some countries are stepping up efforts to regulate tech platforms and safeguard the democratic process. But with each passing election, the challenge of combating misinformation grows. While misinformation and polarization pose significant threats, there are also reasons for hope. In many countries, young voters and women are becoming key drivers of electoral outcomes. In places like the US and India, mobilizing younger generations is crucial to shaping the political landscape. Young people and women are taking center stage in this year's elections. Their votes could be the key to countering populism and renewing democratic engagement. However, there is also a risk of political disengagement among younger generations, as voter turnout continues to lag behind that of older populations. Addressing this gap will be crucial in ensuring that their voices are represented. The outcomes of these elections will have significant implications for global geopolitics. In the US, the result of the 2024 presidential election will shape the country's role in international organizations and its approach to issues like climate change, trade, and security. Similarly, elections in the EU, India, and other major democracies will determine their alignment in global conflicts and international cooperation. These elections are not just about domestic politics. The results will shape international relations, global cooperation, and the ability to tackle critical issues like climate change and economic inequality. For authoritarian regimes like Russia and Belarus, the consolidation of power through manipulated elections could lead to further geopolitical tensions, particularly in regions like Eastern Europe and Central Asia. As the world enters the 2024 election supercycle, the future of democracy hangs in the balance. From authoritarian regimes using elections to entrench power to established democracies facing unprecedented challenges, the stakes have never been higher. What happens this year will determine the trajectory of global governance for years to come. The 2024 global election supercycle is not just a series of votes, it's a battle for the future of democracy. Will democratic values withstand the pressures of polarization and misinformation, or will authoritarianism continue to rise? The world is watching, and the future is at stake.